G'day boys, thank you for giving me time to actually review this video. The video itself will contain type of game style, should I say, which includes several phases. But what I want us to do is actually spend a bit of time reviewing this particular video, and as well working out certain structures. I've also embedded additional videos from AFL in terms of actually helping us to get a better understanding of how to play the game. This is a sort of a foundation for us to actually review and refer to on a regular basis during the course of the year as well. What we hope to do and achieve is to actually video our own game so we can actually learn ourselves how we've performed, etc. And for education purposes, I think it would be absolutely beneficial for all concerned. Anyway, sit back, there's a lot of content included within this video, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
change the world? Start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. To pass SEAL training, there are a series of long swims that must be completed. One is the night swim. Before the swim, the instructors joyfully brief the students on all the species of sharks that inhabit the waters off San Clemente. They assure you, however, that no student has ever been eaten by a shark, at least not that they can remember. But you are also taught that if a shark begins to circle your position, stand your ground. Do not swim away. Do not act afraid. And if the shark, hungry for a midnight snack, darts towards you, then summons up all your strength and punch him in the snout, and he will turn and swim away. There are a lot of sharks in the world. If you hope to complete the swim, you will have to deal with them. So if you want to change the world, don't back down from the sharks. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchkin crew, we called them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers. The 9th week of training is referred to as Hell Week. It is 6 days of no sleep, constant physical and mental harassment, and 1 special day at the Mud Flats. The Mud Flats are an area between San Diego and Tijuana where the water runs off and creates the Tijuana Sloughs, a swampy patch of terrain where the mud will engulf you. It is on Wednesday of Hell Week that you paddle down to the Mud Flats and spend the next 15 hours trying to survive this freezing cold, the howling wind, and the incessant pressure to quit from the instructors. As the sun began to set that Wednesday evening, my training class, having committed some egregious infraction to rules, was ordered into the mud. The mud consumed each man till there was nothing visible but our heads. The instructors told us we could leave the mud if only 5 men would quit. Only 5 men, just 5 men, and we could get out of the oppressive cold. Looking around the mud flat, it was apparent that some students were about to give up. It was still over 8 hours till the sun came up. 8 more hours of bone-chilling cold. The chattering teeth and the shivering moans of the trainees were so loud, it was hard to hear anything. And then one voice began to echo through the night. One voice raised in song. The song was terribly out of tune, but sung with great enthusiasm. One voice became 2, and 2 became 3, and before long, everyone in the class was singing. The instructors threatened us with more time in the mud if we kept up the singing, but the singing persisted, and somehow the mud seemed a little warmer, and the wind a little tamer, and the dawn not so far away. If I have learned anything in my time traveling the world, it is the power of hope, the power of one person, a Washington, a Lincoln, King, Mandela, and even a young girl from Pakistan, Malala. One person can change the world by giving people hope. So if you want to change the world, start each day with a task completed. Find someone to help you through life. Respect everyone. Know that life is not fair and that you will fail often. But if you take some risks, step up when the times are the toughest, face down the bullies, lift up the downtrodden, and never ever give up. If you do these things, the next generation and the generations that follow will live in a world far better than the one we have today. And what started here will indeed have changed the world for the better.
Always look to move the ball on quickly. After a mark or free kick, push back quickly and either quickly play on or handball to a running player.
Oh, he lines up long, sensational!
Playing on quickly and running inboard, especially coming out of defence, increases the number of options downfield. This reduces the chances of the opposition getting numbers behind the ball and their possibility of manning up.
3 men to pick from. Del Santo takes the mark, kicks inside the forward 50 gamble.
If faced with some form of flooding or zoning, more care may be needed. Sometimes it may not be the best option to move it on quickly if no teammates are there. However, getting back off the mark as quickly as you can is still the first action. Then look downfield both long and short and also laterally. There should always be at least one lateral option for the player in possession. The player who runs to receive from behind is in a great position to read what is ahead. The player must be able to do something constructive with the ball upon receiving it.
Beautifully and fed it constructively to Murphy.
Take the first option by hand or by foot. The first thought about what to do with the football is often the most appropriate, especially when surrounded by a number of players. It reduces the time a player is in possession of the ball and reduces the risk of being tackled. Avoid short kicks to a 50-50 contest. Kick the ball long to a teammate's advantage or to space or towards the boundary line. You are taking a risk of a turnover in a 50-50 contest, and the risk is increased when the ball is kicked short. The further downfield the ball is kicked, the more time your team has to man up on an opponent or protect space if the ball is turned over and comes back. Deliver the ball to your teammate's side of the contest. Kick or handball the football towards the area of the field of play that is closest to your teammate. For a kick, this may be about 5 metres in front of your running teammate. This permits your teammate to have an advantage over their opponent by being close to the ball as soon as it comes into their area. The disposal of the ball does not have to be pinpoint, as your teammate will have time to get to the ball starting from a position of advantage.
Well, it was a nice strong kick that sort of made it. The ball was going to go over Hardingham's head as long as Watts could hold him under the flight. Planted his feet, did it well.
Centre the ball in the forward line. When the opportunity arises, kick or handball the football towards a teammate who is moving through the centre corridor.
He can run and deliver to Cooney at full speed. Marks, plays on.
This increases the chances of scoring accurately. Or kick the ball into the hot spot 20 metres directly in front of the goal.
Thinks about the goal, thinks about a centering kick. Centering kick was on. Beautiful work. Eddie Betts.
Kick to the top of the square. When on the boundary line inside your attacking 50, or when you know the distance from goal is at your limit, kick the football to land it in the danger zone about 20 metres in front of goal. Goals are more easily scored from this centre corridor position, which increases pressure on defenders. It is also more difficult for defenders to rush the ball for a behind from this area or punch the ball to the boundary. Prior to disposal, square your hips to the target. When kicking, run straight at the target, or when handballing, face the target so you can clearly see the target player. This increases the chances of disposing of the football accurately and maintaining possession. It is preferable not to kick around corners if you don't have to. Avoid U-turns. Players with their back to their own goals are required to give the football off by hand or foot to a teammate who is moving towards their own goal. This reduces the chance of being caught in possession of the ball. It rewards a teammate who has run to support and can clearly see the options in front of them. If the ball hits the ground, handball up. When picking up the loose football from the ground, the ball should be handballed as the player is coming up to a teammate who is in a more advantageous position. Coming up and handballing at the same time reduces the time in possession of the ball and decreases the time that the opposition have to react to the situation. This is in line with the principle of handballing the ball back to a player in space because you are under pressure whether you are picking it up or having frontal pressure applied. When your team has the ball, everyone is an attacking player. When the football is under your team's control, create options by running from behind or running into space. The player with the ball kicks or handballs to the running or leading player's advantage. Following this rule will force a defensive team to quickly react to the situation and allow the attacking team additional time to create options. Keep pushing to attacking positions until the ball is turned over or you feel you can no longer be involved.
Give it a hand pass, he might run on and get involved again as Swan goes out wide to side bottom inside the forward 50.
Run off your opponent when your team has possession of the ball. As soon as possession of the football is gained by a teammate and you are not in a position to protect your teammate through a block or shepherd, be creative and run into space to provide options for your teammate. The more players who are running off their players and getting themselves free, the more options there are available for the player with the ball. Keep attacking until the ball is turned over or you can no longer be effectively involved. Run to create space. Players should run out of a congested area to create space for other players to lead into to receive a pass. This rule requires players provide options for a teammate with the football by running into areas of the field where there are no other players. It is imperative that players continue to move through areas of space if they do not receive the ball. The reason for this is to vacate that space for a teammate to move into. Run from behind the ball. When your team wins a free kick and takes a mark, start from behind the line of play to receive the football to quickly move it down the ground. Having effectively disposed of the ball, you can then become a defensive player in the event of a turnover. Protect the ball carrier. When your teammate has possession of the football or is in a position to obtain possession, block or shepherd nearby opponents. While this rule always needs a decision by the player in possession about which is the best option, it also implies that you run to protect your teammates rather than run to receive in the first instance. If there is any doubt, then block or shepherd. Protection of the ball carrier always allows additional time and space to assess options and execute the appropriate skill under reduced physical pressure. Lead to the fat side of the ground. The fat side is the side away from where the ball is currently in play. When you have the opportunity and when the space is available, give a strong lead into the space where there are no or few players, often referred to as the fat side. This provides the opportunity to receive the football without defensive players being in the area and improves the chances of the player winning a 50-50 contest, especially if the ball is kicked to the leader's advantage. Start in front and be first to move. Stand in front of your opponent, and when the football is coming into your area, start to move before your opponent. This means that you're going to reach the ball before your opponent because you have anticipated the ball's projected flight path first. This provides you with more time to gain possession. There is one caveat on this rule. Defenders may be better placed by starting slightly behind their forward opponent and on the inside so they can force them to lead wide. It is also more likely that you'll lose your forward opponent if you take the front position. Good defenders will read the ball in flight and move to the front at the right time. When the opposition has the ball, everyone is a defensive player. When the football is not under your control, find an opponent to prevent that player from obtaining possession. Forwards, maintain the pressure on the defenders so that the ball is not easily released from inside 50. This creates pressure on kicks and handballs and also gives your team time to set up defensively. If you cannot get to your direct opponent, cover the most dangerous opposition player, who is usually the player closest to goal or in the corridor. Punch the ball when caught behind unless you are sure of marking. When you are behind your opponent and it is apparent your opponent is going to mark the football, then you should punch the ball away to prevent your opponent from taking the mark. In the back half of the ground, you should vigorously punch towards the boundary.
Over the top.
While inside the attacking 50, you should punch the ball towards the centre corridor. In the defensive part of the ground, move the ball towards the boundary when under pressure or when in doubt. In a congested situation in defence, and when there is a risk associated with moving the ball forward and keeping it in play, move the ball by hand or by foot wide towards the boundary rather than bring it back towards the centre of the field. If there is a turnover close to the boundary line, the opposition have to work the ball towards the centre corridor, therefore allowing the defensive team time to get players behind the ball. When the ball is in a neutral situation, all players must start on the defensive side of their opponents. When the football is in dispute, that is when neither side has clear control over the ball, all players should stand between their opponents and the opponent's goal. This rule particularly applies at stoppages inside the defensive 50-metre area. A touch and feel approach is likely to be important here. This reduces time and space for the opposition to work in. Once the ball is in play, kicked or hit from a stoppage, you must react to where you believe the ball is going. At stoppages, touch and feel. At a boundary throw-in or a ball-up situation, stand close enough to your opponent that you can feel them. This means that you will know where your opponent is at least until the football re-enters play. If your opponent is playing a negating role, this will also allow you to push off your opponent and create space for yourself. This applies in defensive and midfield stoppages, or when you are required to play man-on-man. At centre bounces, you should set up in the way that will give you the best chance to win the ball. And at forward stoppages, you want to break contact to try to lose your opponent in traffic. Get numbers to every contest. It is important to get as many players to the contest as possible. Outnumbering the opposition at contests increases the chances of winning the football. 2 beats 1 most times. This will depend to some extent on how you want to set up for the stoppage. At forward line stoppages, the midfielders, and in some case some of the forwards, should try to get their opponent to follow them away from the stoppage. You may try to send midfielders in and get your forwards to drag their opponents away. Most defenders will go with a forward, whereas midfielders may just position around a stoppage and won't come with you. Be front and square. At the marking contest, the crummer should be in front of the marking contest, in the middle and facing the contest. On most occasions with drop marks or spoils from behind, the football finishes in front or to either side of the marking contest. All players should get to as many marking contests as possible and be front and square to be in the best position to gather the crumbs. Once in possession of the ball from this position, a player can see towards goal and assess disposal options. Keep the ball in front of you in the air and on the ground. When in a contested ball situation, whether on the ground or in the air, you should endeavour to be facing your attacking goal and be between the opposition player and the defensive goal. This enables you to keep moving towards your goal and avoid a possible U-turn situation. Keep your feet at all times. Stay on your feet in all contests to avoid being out of the contest and reducing numbers around the football. On most occasions, the contested ball is won and is cleared by the team with the most numbers at the contest. Perform the 1%ers. Do the team things. Players should always keep pressure on the opposition by performing the little efforts which assist the team to gain or maintain possession of the football. Coaches can develop their own definitions of 1%ers. Generally, 1%ers are things like knock-ons,
Did well, second attempt, knocked it across.
spoils, smothers,
Hill.
shepherds, chases,
But he gains on him now. Now he's got boot to that.
blocking and screening, and working the mark. Having all players in the team doing these team things consistently is a hallmark of successful teams.
Most common kind of pressure forward is the small tackling forward. Their role is to apply pressure to the ball carrier, rolling up to tackle, effect a kick, or even close down an opponent in an attempt to create a turnover. Even if they don't get the ball back themselves, they create a situation that makes it easier for teammates down the ground to intercept the ball, as the longer the ball is locked inside 50, the more time their teammates have to set up their zone. There are a number of goals teams must consider when they allocate forward roles. As important as pressure is, to win a game of football, you must kick goals. Different teams achieve this balance in different ways. For example, the 2017 Tigers, who became renowned for their forward pressure throughout 2017, adopt a holistic approach. No single small forward was instructed to purely just try and kick goals. Instead, their three main smalls that year, Dan Butler, Jason Castagna, and Daniel Rioli, focused on applying relentless pressure to opposition defences, and at the end of the season, they ranked 3rd, 4th and 5th in Richmond's goal kicking that year, scoring 30, 26 and 25 goals, the majority of which came from turnovers. At Richmond, it doesn't matter who's kicking the goals at the end of the day, so long as pressure is up and the smalls get a handy tally between them. To contrast this, last year Brisbane's main small forwards were Charlie Cameron, Lincoln McCarthy and Cam Rayner. Cameron ranked first at the Lions with 57 goals, while McCarthy and Rayner ranked much lower, equal 5th with 20. While there's no doubt Cameron is adept at applying pressure, it's clear that his role is to find the big sticks. For McCarthy and Rayner, so long as pressure's high, Chris Fagan is content so long as they pop up on the score sheet when they're needed. But aside from which players simply manage to tackle defenders, what other stats indicate forward pressure? Champion data measures 4 types of pressure players can apply without even laying a tackle, and these form the KPIs for pressure forwards. Corralling is defined as a player guarding space, so an opponent is limited with their run or movement. Chasing is closing space between you and an opponent in front of you. Closing is the same as chasing, but from the front or side of the ball carrier. And physical pressure is when you get a hand to a player while they are disposing of the ball, but this doesn't have to be a tackle. Other measures of success include turnovers created by forwards and points from turnovers created. The Tigers' forward pressure may have been the story of 2017, but both stats were topped by Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti that year, who dominated the league scores from turnovers, with Rioli and Castagna rounding out the top 5 on both accounts. That these stats are dominated by small forwards highlights the expectations placed on these players in the modern game, as opposed to small forwards gone by, like Peter Dacos or Stephen Milne, whose focus was squarely on goal. It is worth noting though that Eddie Betts, a small forward known more for his miraculous goals than his tackling pressure, recorded his highest goal tally in the same year as his highest tackling numbers. These approaches to forward pressure have all been in the interest of team defence, where a group of players combat the opposition's attack in a holistic manner. However, this is not the only way to build pressure. Albeit less commonly, forwards are sometimes used more specifically to target a sole opposition defender and limit their impact on the game. For example, Jason Johannesson, who's known to be an important part of the Bulldogs' link-up play and rebound off half-back, was notably tagged by several different teams during 2017, following his Norm Smith winning grand final performance the year prior. On occasion, mid-sized and taller forwards will also sacrifice their own marking games and focus on providing an aerial contest against intercept players. So if you're watching a game of footy and your team just can't get a clean run out of defence, or it feels like they can't stop turning the ball over, the pressure being applied at the point of disposal, or your best backman being tagged, could be some of the key reasons why. If you'd like an area of AFL explained, please leave your requests in the comments below. Welcome to the first video in our AFL Explained series. In this playlist, we'll break down key facets of the game, helping you transition from a casual footy fan to the resident expert of your friends or office. In this episode, we break down what a zone defense is. A zone refers to each player protecting a zone or section of the field, rather than playing on a direct opponent. This is executed by a series of grids formed by the defensive team. In addition, players will put their hands in the air and move subtly on the spot to give the appearance they are covering more space than they actually are. A zone is most notably formed after a behind is scored, a stop in the play giving the team time to set up and lock the ball in their forward half. In theory, a successful zone should both demand a high level of competency in decision making and execution by the ball carrier, and turn a defensive situation into an attacking opportunity by creating a turnover. To combat a zone, you will often see teams switch the play with a sideways or backwards kick. This is in an attempt to shift the zone out of position, creating pockets of space for teammates to lead up into. In response, the zone must move as a unit, holding their shape as they shift sideways. If even one player is out of position, it is enough opportunity for an attacking side to move the ball forwards. But what happens if the offensive team plays on? In this case, it is the closest defender's role to run towards the ball carrier and apply pressure. In the zone, each player files forwards, filling the gaps in front of them. Even one or two handballs could be enough to break through a zone and release a kick to a player further afield. When switching doesn't shift the zone, and it's too risky to play on, teams will elect to kick it down the line, conceding there is a high chance they will lose the ball. They keep the play closer to the boundary. The boundary is seen as a safer option as it increases the likelihood of a throw-in. If the ball is turned over, having the boundary nearby limits the number of directions the opposition can move the ball, compared to the middle of the ground. Zones are now a key part of every AFL team's defensive setup, and and while each team forms their zone slightly differently, they are all built off this basic structure. So next time it seems that a team is simply walking through your club's defence, a poor zone, or a well-executed switching or running game plan could be some of the key reasons why. If you'd like an area of AFL explained, please leave your request in the comments below. Welcome back to our AFL Explained series. In this playlist, we'll break down key facets of the game, helping you transition from a casual footy fan to the resident expert of your friends or office. In this video, we look at some of the key structures for a loose man in defence. In order to gain an advantage in defence, many teams will implement a free player in their backline. The loose man can be generated in a variety of ways. The first option is to drop a member of the forward line to your back line, resulting in a 7-6-5 formation. In this arrangement, the loose man operates as the designated intercept player. Intercept players typically position themselves one kick behind a stoppage, hoping to immediately create a turnover if the opposition gains a clearance. This position requires incredible football intelligence to play effectively, as the intercept player must read the game unfolding in front of them and accordingly adjust their position. The loose man may opt to sit deep in the opposition defence, allowing them to effectively coordinate the team's defensive structure. Alternatively, if the opposition team has a dominant key forward, then the loose man might play particularly close to them, creating a 2-on-1 situation, where one defender engages contact, while the loose man comes across the front or over the top. When teams play a 7-6-5, it leaves the opposition with a decision to make about their loose man. They can either use an intercept player of their own, play an extra midfielder around the contest, or man up the other loose man by playing an extra forward. However, when the AFL introduced 6-6-6 starting positions for the 2019 season, teams were forced to adapt their systems. If teams still want to play 7 back, they can generate a spare, but it takes longer. For example, a winger might wrap around to defence while a half forward pushes up to cover the wing. Or a defensive player could start forward and then proceed to run up to the centre circle when the ball is bounced, then proceed to the back line. Many teams, however, have adapted to using intercept players in a peeling off role instead. As an example, take a game between two teams such as Richmond, rated the league's best defence, and the Western Bulldogs, who possess many options in their forward line. Most likely, Asbury and Grimes, the two taller defenders, will line up on Bruce and Norton, while Nick Vlosten will play on a less experienced, younger forward. Vlosten would then have more freedom to impact the contest while playing on a lesser opponent, using his elite reading of the game to decide when it's in his team's best interest to abandon his own player in order to help his fellow defenders. It's up to the instinct of the intercept player to judge when to stay on their man, whether to create a 2-on-1, and risk leaving their man lurking dangerously at the back. If a forward realises that the defender is peeling off and having a greater impact defensively than they are in attack, the solution is for them to sacrifice their own game and run to opposite areas of the play, or move further up the field, drawing the intercept player further away from the ball, and as a result, decreasing their impact on the game. It's important for the other defenders to work with the intercept player. Holding a strong zone that preoccupies the opposition will make it easier for interceptors to come over the top, and covering the interceptor's man could give them the peace of mind to impact the contest more often. When intercept players are dominating the backline, it can in turn dictate how the opposition plays further afield. Teams will refrain from kicking long to the contest, where they're outnumbered, and instead may opt for shorter chips up the ground, or to break the zone with run and carry. When used correctly, the loose man can be the difference between the two sides, and is a key reason why a natural ability to read the play is such a highly sought after aspect of any defender's game. If you would like an area of AFL explained, please leave your request in the comments below.